We have seen for most churches that outreach is treated as a one-off, disconnected event, and it's something we're committed to helping you change. Let's dig a little deeper into this. Meet James. Let's imagine that he came to your last evangelistic series. What we typically see is that if James doesn't become a church member within 3 months of your event, in most cases, he will never hear from your church again, ever. The problem is that the vast majority of people will not make the leap from attending an event to becoming a church member in that 3-month window. It is usually a much longer journey. When we start working with churches, one of the first things we do is to begin to consolidate all of their past interests to help make it easier to reach out to them consistently going forward. When we receive their mounds of spreadsheets of contact information and we scroll all the way over to the right side, at most we see 2 extra columns. Contact 1, Contact 2. That's it. And I'll tell you, that's not enough. Let me share a true story. Meet someone we'll call Robert. Now, I'm changing his name for anonymity, but he attended a church's vacation Bible school in the 1970s, nearly 50 years ago. And as far as we know, he hasn't been back. And then last year, he responded to a free book offer, and we heard nothing until our Bible worker at the time called him and invited him to a church event. And guess what? He came. What did it take? Just one simple invitation. That's it. And guess what? At the end of the event, he asked the Bible worker to continue inviting him back to more events. Wow. This story just goes to show that people can have significant interest that is years or maybe even decades long, but you may never know it if you don't stay in continuous contact with them. The old adage is true: out of sight, out of mind. If we don't stay in touch, we may very well let interested individuals just fall through the cracks. And that's something that we all don't want to happen. So how can your church continually stay connected with interest forever? Well, for starters, realize it's a journey. And the great news is it's never been easier than it is right now. Just think, 100 years ago, we pretty much had to hop on a horse and ride from town to town. It's much easier today. A key concept is scalable versus non-scalable types of communication. What's the difference, you might ask? Well, a non-scalable form of communication is one that you cannot increase exponentially. An example of that would be a personal visitation. If overnight your church went from visiting 10 people a week, it'd be a pretty significant stretch to start visiting 10,000 people a week, right? Non-scalable communication takes a lot of effort to grow in a significant way. Now, scalable communication is just what its name implies. It can easily increase exponentially overnight, and it takes little to no extra effort as the number increases. An example of this is an email invitation to a church event. It takes the same amount of time to craft a message and send to one person as it does 100 million. Now, please don't take what I'm saying out of context. An email isn't even remotely as powerful as a personal visit or a personal phone call or a personal handwritten letter, and it never will be. So why does it matter at all? Well, after we consolidate a church's past interest, an average they have is between 500 and 1,000 already. What does that mean? Well, it would be hard for most churches to visit that amount of people more than once or twice a year. Scalable communication isn't meant to take away from the hallmarks of evangelism, but it can fill and maintain the gaps. That's the point. There are a lot of forms of scalable communication, and here are some of the main ones that we see and use all the time. Your website, email, text messages, YouTube videos, social posts, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and that list is always growing. Digital advertising. Did you know that you can invite 1,000 people to church for just about $8? A thought for you is, when was the last time your church invited 1,000 people to come to a service? It's important to remember that people prefer to communicate in different ways. Some people never use social media, and others have thousands of emails piling up and they'll never check their inbox. And so there's no one way to reach everyone. So we recommend a multifaceted outreach approach, using as many as sustainable. If you feel overwhelmed right now, just don't. The easiest place for churches to start is with what they're already doing. The beautiful thing about churches is that they do so many things already. Just think about it. If you have a weekly sermon, a weekly Bible study, and a weekly prayer meeting, without doing anything extra, you already have 156 events to invite people to a year. That's a lot. Churches have a constant stream of events, and these are all opportunities to reach out. Invitations to church, to potluck, to prayer meeting, Bible studies to download, children's studies to download, and these are just the tip of the iceberg. Our first recommendation is just to get organized. The second step is to choose 1 or 2 communication channels that can be sent with consistency. And third, as you learn what channels and methods are the most impactful, never stop improving. Remember, this is a long-term approach that we're talking about here, so don't anticipate immediate results. Here's some fascinating Cliff Note insight on an individual's journey from the beginning of the relationship with the church until they were recently baptized. First, members in the church delivered 20 Bible studies on this individual's porch that they had requested, without ever meeting that individual one time. And as time went on, this person began engaging more and more with the church. They signed up for multiple events, attended 2 complete Revelation seminars, and as part of signing up for the events, they opted in to email and text messaging. They began to receive weekly emails and text messages. Before getting baptized, they had received over 150 emails, nearly 100 text messages, visited the church's website over 100 times, and were personally contacted 15 times from individuals at the church. Lastly, they left a Facebook review about the church that was very positive, by the way, over 2 years before they got baptized. And up to the point of baptism, they left over 40 comments on church social media posts. That's incredible, isn't it? The point is, evangelism is not a one-time event. For many churches, it looks like this. And this is not repeatable. It's not predictable. It's not measurable. It's not trainable. It can't be scaled. It requires an inordinate amount of personal effort. We think it should look more like this. Rethinking our approach doesn't mean replacing tried and true methods. We just need to fill the gaps in sustainable ways. You never know when an interest may be one email or one phone call away from taking the next step. When they are, we need to be there. So now that we've given you some reasons why you should be communicating regularly with everyone you know, in future posts we'll discuss specific communication strategies that will help you stay in touch in the most effective and efficient ways. Make sure you don't miss those future updates by subscribing. And if we can be of help, we'd love to work directly with your church. Just contact us and let's have a conversation. Until next time, this is Chris Dellen with Rethinking Evangelism.